The extra place settings should have been my first warning. I walked into my parents' house that Sunday evening, the familiar smell of Mom's pot roast filling the kitchen, and noticed 4 additional plates on our worn dining table. Mom was bustling around in her best apron, the one she only wore for company, while Dad sat in his recliner, unusually quiet. "Who's joining us?" I asked, hanging my jacket on the back of a chair. "Warren and Dexter," Mom replied without looking up from her gravy. "Your father invited them." Warren, Dad's best friend since high school and business partner for the last 15 years. I barely knew his son Dexter beyond the occasional family barbecue where he'd hover near the food table, checking his phone. My sister Vera shot me a look from the couch, wide eyes and raised eyebrows that screamed, "Something's up." She'd been unusually quiet since I'd arrived, which for Vera was like finding a unicorn in your backyard. When Warren and Dexter arrived, the weirdness intensified. Warren practically bounced through the door, grinning like he'd won the lottery. Dexter followed behind, wearing a crisp button-down shirt with store creases still visible, looking about as comfortable as a cat in a bathtub. Dinner started normally enough. Mom served her famous pot roast, making sure Dexter got the best pieces while shooting me these loaded glances. Dad made small talk about work. Warren launched into stories about their latest business contracts. But something felt off, like everyone was reading from a script I hadn't been given. Then between the main course and Mom's boxed brownie mixed dessert, Dad cleared his throat. "Zara," he said, setting down his fork with deliberate precision, "Warren and I have been talking." My stomach dropped. That tone, measured, serious, final, was the same one he'd used when he told me I couldn't go to art school because it wasn't practical. "Dexter here is ready to settle down," Warren jumped in, beaming at his son, who was suddenly fascinated by his napkin. "And we thought, what better match than our two families coming together?" I nearly choked on my water. "What?" "It makes perfect sense," Dad continued, not even glancing in my direction. "Warren and I are expanding the business. Dexter's going to take over his father's share eventually. You two would make a good partnership." Partnership, not couple, not marriage. Partnership, like we were discussing a merger of convenience stores. "I'm dating Logan," I said, my voice sounding strange and distant. Everyone at the table already knew this. Logan had been to enough family dinners, brought enough flowers to Mom, suffered through enough of Dad's grunted responses to sports talk. Mom waved her hand dismissively, like she was shooing away a fly. "Oh, honey, that's just young girl's fancy. We're talking about your future here." "Your mother's right," Dad added. "Logan's a nice enough kid, but he's not going anywhere. Dexter here has a real future in the business." I looked at Dexter, who had somehow managed to shrink further into his chair. His face was the color of Mom's overcooked carrots, and he still hadn't said a single word. Warren was nodding enthusiastically, like he'd just solved world hunger. "This is insane," I said, my voice cracking. "I'm not marrying Dexter. I love Logan." Dad's face went through several shades of red before settling on an alarming purple. "This isn't about love, Zara. This is about family. This is about future." I stood up so fast my chair scraped against the linoleum. "I can't believe you're serious about this." "Sit down," Mom hissed, glancing toward the living room like the neighbors might overhear. "We're having a family discussion." "No, we're not." I grabbed my purse from the counter. "You're having a business meeting, and apparently I'm the product being sold." As I headed for the door, Dad's voice followed me. "You have until the end of the month to end things with that boy. We're announcing the engagement at Warren's birthday party." I didn't turn around. I just walked out into the cool evening air, my hands shaking as I fumbled for my phone to call Logan. He was already waiting in his beat-up Honda around the corner. Engine running. We'd planned to go to Walmart after dinner to pick up some things for his studio apartment. Now I collapsed into the passenger seat, my whole body trembling. "That bad?" he asked gently, not even asking what had happened. He could read it on my face. "They want me to marry Dexter," I said, the words sounding absurd even as I spoke them. "Dad's best friend's son. They've apparently been planning this." Logan's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Are you serious?" "Dead serious. Dad gave me until the end of the month to break up with you." We drove to Walmart in silence, both of us processing the bomb that had just exploded our quiet Sunday evening. As we wandered the fluorescent-lit aisles, picking out cheap picture frames and shower curtains, I kept thinking about the look in my parents' eyes. This wasn't some old-fashioned whim. They were desperate. Over the next few days, my phone buzzed constantly. Mom sending me articles about making smart choices for your future. Vera texting frantic messages about how serious Dad was. Even my cousin Ophelia called, wanting to know if the family rumors were true. The breaking point came when I snuck home to grab some clothes while my parents were at work. Vera was there, skipping her community college classes because she was sick, which usually meant hungover or avoiding a test. "You need to know what's really going on," she said, pulling me into my childhood bedroom. "It's not just about tradition or family values. Dad and Warren are in trouble, deep financial trouble." She explained how she'd overheard phone calls, seen the stress lines deepening around Dad's eyes, noticed how Mom had started shopping exclusively at the discount grocery store. Warren's business was failing, and he'd pulled Dad down with him. They needed this marriage to combine their companies, to make themselves attractive to some big developer who wanted to buy them out. "They put a deposit down on a wedding venue," Vera whispered, showing me a contract on her phone. $5,000, non-refundable. "They booked it for Warren's birthday party, but look at the fine print." I read the document with growing horror. They'd signed it as an engagement celebration. In their minds, this was already decided. That night, Logan and I sat in his tiny studio apartment, eating microwave ramen and talking until sunrise. We'd been planning to move in together anyway when his lease was up. We'd been talking about marriage in that abstract, someday kind of way. But suddenly, someday felt like right now. "What if we just did it?" Logan said, twirling noodles around his plastic fork. "Got married, I mean. Not because of them, but because we want to." I looked at him, really looked at him. His hair was sticking up from running his hands through it, a nervous habit I'd grown to love. His apartment was smaller than most people's closets, but he'd made it home with plants he'd rescued from the clearance section and artwork his niece had made him. "You're serious?" I asked. "Dead serious. We could go to the courthouse. Make it real. Show them this isn't some phase or fancy. This is our life." 2 weeks later, on a random Tuesday morning, we stood in the courthouse downtown. I wore a $30 white dress from Amazon that looked better in the photos than in person. Logan wore his one good button-down shirt. His friend Andre served as our witness, taking blurry photos on his phone while the clerk processed our paperwork between bites of her sandwich. The whole ceremony took maybe 10 minutes. No flowers, no music, no family. Just us, promising to love each other for better or worse, richer or poorer. Which, given our current financial situation, seemed especially relevant. We celebrated at the diner around the corner, splitting a plate of fries and a chocolate milkshake because that's what our wedding budget allowed. The waitress gave us free pie when she found out we'd just gotten married, the first stroke of wedding luck we'd had all day. I posted one photo on Instagram that evening, that single clear shot Andre had managed to take, where Logan and I were looking at each other and laughing because I'd almost dropped the $12 ring we'd bought. My caption was simple: "So we did a thing." The response was immediate. Ophelia sent heart emojis. Vera called, crying and laughing at the same time. And then my mom called from the grocery store parking lot, sobbing so hard a store employee asked if she needed medical assistance. "How could you do this to us?" she wailed. "How could you do this to the family? What about the venue deposit? What am I going to tell everyone at church?" Dad's reaction came through Vera. Apparently, he threw his phone across the room when he saw the post. Warren immediately drove over to their house. The most surprising response came from Dexter himself, who actually liked our Instagram post and commented, "Congratulations," which probably didn't help the family meeting that was clearly happening at my parents' house. We're writing this from a motel room that smells like old cigarettes and broken dreams. It's not exactly where I imagined spending my honeymoon, but Logan's making me laugh by trying to make coffee with the ancient machine that's older than both of us combined. The apartment we applied for isn't fancy. Ground floor, weird layout, no dishwasher, but it would be ours. The leasing office should call by Friday with their decision. Money's tight. We're both picking up extra shifts wherever we can, and I'm selling clothes online to build up our savings. Sometimes I wake up panicking about everything we've done, wondering if we've made a terrible mistake. But then Logan makes some ridiculous joke about our motel neighbors or burns toast in our single working appliance. And I remember exactly why I chose this life. It's not perfect, but it's ours. My phone keeps buzzing with family drama, updates from Vera about dad's mood, guilt-laden messages from mom about the wedding fund they'd been building since I was born, threats about being written out of wills that probably don't exist anyway. Through it all, I keep coming back to one truth. They tried to trade me like a business asset to save a company that was already sinking. They put a price tag on my happiness and called it love. I chose differently. I chose the man who makes me laugh, who holds me when I cry, who splits his last $5 so we can both have coffee in the morning. It might not be the fairy tale wedding I dreamed about as a little girl, but sometimes the best love stories start with rebellion, not permission. And sometimes the family you choose is more important than the family you're born into. We're taking it day by day, apartment hunting during lunch breaks, and learning to make a life together, one microwave meal at a time. It's messy and uncertain and completely imperfect, but it's ours, and that makes all the difference.